The forest doesn't forgive. Not tonight. Not when the air tastes like copper and ash, when the moon hangs bloated and red above the pines, when every shadow stretches long enough to hide a monster. She runs because stopping means dying, because her lungs are screaming and her bare feet are shredded, but none of that matters when the howls behind her are getting closer. Her name is Celine, though she hasn't spoken it aloud in 8 years. Hasn't needed to. The dead don't require introductions, and that's what she was supposed to be. What they made her. What they promised the darkness when they laid her on that altar and held her down while she begged for her mother to save her. Her mother didn't. The memory flashes hot and vicious as lightning, and Celine stumbles over an exposed root, catches herself on a tree trunk that scrapes her palm raw. Blood wells up, dark and immediate, and she knows with the kind of certainty that lives in bone marrow, that they can smell it. The pack. Her pack. The wolves who are hunting her now with the same dedication they once used to throw her away. She was 10 years old when they decided she was expendable. When Alpha Corvin stood before the gathered pack, his face carved from stone, and declared that the prophecy demanded a sacrifice. That the creatures stalking them from the Shadowlands would accept nothing less than innocent blood. That Celine, small and powerless and perfect for slaughter, would buy them another year of safety. They had dressed it up in ritual. In ceremony. In the soft lies adults tell children when they're about to do something unforgivable. Her mother had braided her hair that morning, fingers gentle, eyes empty. Had kissed her forehead and whispered that she was brave, so brave, and that sometimes the moon goddess asked terrible things of her children. Celine had believed her. Right up until the moment the blade came down. She doesn't remember the pain. The mind is merciful that way, editing out the worst parts, leaving only the before and after. The before, her screaming, thrashing against the hands holding her down, searching the crowd for someone, anyone, who would stop this. The after, waking up somewhere else entirely, somewhere that shouldn't exist, cradled in light that felt like love and tasted like starlight. The moon goddess doesn't speak the way mortals do. She doesn't need words. Celine had understood everything in that first moment of impossible awakening, that she had been chosen not for death but for transformation, that her suffering had marked her, that she would be remade into something her pack couldn't imagine in their darkest nightmares. 8 years. 8 years of training under wolves made of celestial fire, of learning to harness the power that sang in her veins like a second heartbeat, of becoming something more than mortal, but less than divine. A hybrid. A weapon. A girl whose heart had calcified around a core of pure, burning rage. And now she's back. The Blood Moon Festival. Of course it would be tonight. The one night every year when the pack gathers at the sacred grounds to celebrate their survival, to honor the sacrifices that bought their peace, to pretend that what they did was necessary. Noble. Right. Celine had walked into the festival clearing an hour ago wearing a cloak that hid her face and carrying enough fury to burn the world down. She'd planned to wait. To watch. To choose the perfect moment to reveal herself and watch their faces crumble into horror. But then he'd looked at her. The Alpha King. She hadn't known that's what he was at first. Hadn't cared. She'd only registered the way he'd gone utterly still across the bonfire, the way his entire body had oriented toward her like a compass finding north. The way his wolf had risen in his eyes, not aggressive, not threatening, but desperate. Yearning. Mate. The bond had snapped into place with the force of a lightning strike, violent and inevitable, and Celine had felt it trying to take root in her chest. Felt it reaching for the parts of her that had been shattered and scattered on that altar 8 years ago. Felt it promising healing and wholeness and everything she'd stopped believing in the moment her pack chose their own survival over her life. She'd run. Turned and bolted into the forest before he could speak, before anyone else could see, before the bond could sink its claws in deep enough to matter. Because she didn't come back for love. She came back for justice. For vengeance. For the sight of Alpha Corvin's face when he realizes the little girl he murdered is standing in front of him, powerful enough to end his entire bloodline with a thought. But the pack had seen her. Someone had recognized her eyes, or the way she moved, or maybe they'd just felt the wrongness of her presence. The way you feel a ghost in the room. The way you know when something dead has decided to walk again. Now they're hunting her through the forest where she used to play as a child, and the irony would be funny if it wasn't so bitter. Celine's lungs are burning. The trees blur past in streaks of black and gray, and somewhere behind her, closer than before, she hears Alpha Corvin's voice cutting through the night like a blade. Find her. Whatever she is now, whatever twisted thing she's become, she doesn't leave this forest alive. Whatever she's become. As if she chose this. As if she woke up one morning and decided to be monstrous instead of having monstrosity carved into her by the people who were supposed to love her. The rage inside her flares hot enough to taste, metallic and electric, and Celine feels the power rising in response. The divine fire the moon goddess planted in her chest, the thing that makes her more than wolf, more than human, more than anything her pack has words for. It wants out. Wants to burn. Wants to show them exactly what they created when they spilled her blood on sacred ground and expected the universe to accept it. Not yet. Not yet. She didn't survive 8 years of training to waste it on a meaningless slaughter in the dark. She wants them to see her. All of them. Wants them to know exactly who she is before she decides whether they deserve to live through the night. A howl splits the air, too close, and Celine puts on a burst of speed that shouldn't be possible. But possible stopped meaning anything the day she died and came back. She is impossibility now. Living proof that the universe doesn't work the way anyone thinks it does. The forest opens up ahead into a clearing she knows. Knows intimately. The old ritual site where the pack used to gather before they built the new one closer to the den. Where her grandmother used to tell stories about the first wolves, about the bond between their kind and the moon, about the way magic runs through blood and bone and can't be trained out or bred away. Where they killed her. Celine skids to a stop in the center of the clearing, chest heaving, blood dripping from her torn feet onto earth that remembers. The altar is still here. Weathered and overgrown, but unmistakable. She can see the stains if she looks hard enough. Iron dark. Permanent. The wolves burst from the tree lean in a semicircle, at least a dozen of them, their eyes reflecting the red moonlight like coins at the bottom of a well. Alpha Corvin steps forward, human-shaped but barely, his wolf so close to the surface his skin ripples with it. He's older than she remembers. Grayer. Harder. He doesn't recognize her. Not yet. You trespassed on sacred ground during the Blood Moon Festival, he says, voice rough with authority and something else. Something that might be fear if Alpha Corvin was capable of such things. You ran when commanded to identify yourself. You've committed. Don't you know me, Alpha? Celine lets the cloak fall. Lets him see her face. Lets them all see what 8 years and divine intervention have made of the little girl they butchered. The recognition hits him like a physical blow. She watches him stagger back a step, watches the color drain from his face, watches his wolf recoil in his eyes. Around the clearing, the other wolves are shifting, uneasy, because they feel it now. The wrongness. The impossibility. The presence of something that shouldn't exist. Celine. Her name falls from his lips like a confession. Like a curse. You're dead. We watched you die. She smiles, and it's not kind. You watched me bleed out on that altar while you told yourselves it was necessary. That the prophecy demanded it. That I was the price of your survival. The prophecy. The prophecy was a lie. Her voice cracks like a whip, sharp enough to make them flinch. There were no creatures in the Shadowlands. No ancient evil demanding sacrifice. There was only a coward too weak to protect his pack, so he convinced himself that murdering a child was leadership. Alpha Corvin's face hardens. You don't understand what we faced. What we had no choice. There's always a choice. Celine takes a step forward, and the wolves behind him shift nervously. They can feel it now. the power rolling off her in waves, pressing against their skin like heat from a fire. You chose your fear over my life. You chose convenience over compassion. You chose wrong. Someone in the pack, she doesn't see who, lets out a low, threatening growl. The sound triggers something in the others, a ripple of aggression spreading through the group like wildfire. They're going to attack. She can see it in the way they lower themselves, in the way their muscles bunch and coil. Good. Let them try. But before the first wolf can lunge, before Celine can decide whether she's going to defend herself or let them see exactly what happens when you try to kill someone the moon goddess has claimed, another presence explodes into the clearing. The Alpha King. He's massive in his wolf form, coat black as midnight, eyes burning gold. And he puts himself directly between Celine and the pack with a snarl that makes the earth tremble. Every wolf in the clearing, including Alpha Corvin, immediately drops their gaze, submitting to the raw authority radiating from him. He shifts back to human in a ripple of power, and even with his back to her, Celine can feel the rage coming off him in waves. Which one of you, he says, voice deadly soft, is going to explain to me why you're hunting my mate? The word hangs in the air like a blade. Mate. And despite everything, despite the rage and the pain and the 8 years of carefully constructed armor around her heart, Celine feels something inside her chest crack open at the sound of it. If you made it this far, you're probably wondering what happens next. Whether she lets him protect her. Whether she tears her old pack apart. Whether the prophecy they thought they'd escaped by killing her is actually just beginning. Hit subscribe to Shayla's Romance Library. Because this story is just getting started, and trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next. The silence in the clearing is suffocating. Nobody moves. Nobody breathes. They're all frozen in the space between one heartbeat and the next, caught in the gravitational pull of what the Alpha King just claimed. His mate. Celine stares at his back, at the way his shoulders are set like he's preparing for war, at the way every line of his body screams protection and possession, and something fierce enough to rewrite the laws of nature. She doesn't know his name yet. Didn't ask before she ran. But she knows what he is, knows it in the way her wolf recognizes his, in the way the bond between them hums like a live wire, insistent and undeniable. She hates it. Hates that the universe would do this to her now after everything. Hates that the moon goddess would give her a mate in the same breath that she gave her the power to destroy the people who destroyed her. It feels like a test. Like a cosmic joke with a punchline she doesn't want to hear. Alpha Corvin finds his voice first, though it comes out strangled. My king, you don't understand. That girl, she's not what she appears to be. She was dead. We performed the rites. She shouldn't exist. And yet, the Alpha King's voice is colder than winter, sharper than steel. She does. Which means either you're incompetent at killing children, or you're a liar. I'm trying to decide which is worse. The accusation hits like a slap. Around the clearing, pack members shift uncomfortably, their wolves whining low in their throats. Nobody challenges an Alpha King. Nobody survives it. It was necessary, Corvin says, but there's desperation creeping into his tone now. The prophecy. I don't care about your prophecy. He takes a step forward, and despite being in human form, despite being outnumbered, every wolf in the clearing retreats. I care that you just tried to hunt down my mate like an animal. That you looked at her and saw prey instead of what she actually is. And what is she? Corvin's voice cracks on the question. The Alpha King turns, just enough to glance back at Celine, and when their eyes meet, the bond flares so bright she can taste it. Gold and silver, fire and moonlight, everything inevitable and impossible tangled together. Mine, he says simply. Then, to Celine, in a voice that's somehow both gentle and commanding, come here. It's not a request. But it's not quite an order either. It's something in between, something that acknowledges her power while offering his protection, and Celine finds herself responding before her brain catches up to her body. She moves toward him, bare feet silent on the blood-stained ground, and when she reaches his side, he shifts his stance just slightly. Not in front of her anymore. Beside her. Equals. The gesture isn't lost on the pack. She can see it in their faces, the shock, the confusion, the dawning horror as they realize what this means. That she's not just alive. She's protected. Claimed. Untouchable. What's your name? His voice is quieter now, meant only for her, though everyone in the clearing can hear it. Celine. It comes out rougher than she intends, scraped raw by 8 years of not saying it out loud. Celine. He repeats it like a prayer, like a promise, and something in her chest twists painfully. I'm Damien. And I've been looking for you my entire life without knowing it. She wants to tell him he's wrong. That he doesn't know what he's claiming. That she's not some prize to be won or protected, that she's a weapon with a very specific target, and he's standing between her and it. But the words stick in her throat because part of her, the part that's still that 10-year-old girl who just wanted someone to save her, is screaming that he's here now, that he's real, that maybe the universe isn't entirely cruel. You need to leave, she tells him instead. This isn't your fight. Damien's laugh is dark, humorless. The moment that bond snapped into place, every fight of yours became mine. That's how this works. I don't need you to fight for me. Good. He turns to face her fully now, and the intensity in his eyes makes her breath catch. Because I wasn't planning to fight for you. I was planning to fight with you. There's a difference. Around them, the pack is starting to recover from their shock. Celine can feel their attention sharpening, can sense the wheels turning as they try to figure out how to salvage the situation. How to explain away what they did. How to make themselves the victims of circumstance instead of the architects of her destruction. Alpha Corvin clears his throat. My king, if we could speak privately. No, Damien doesn't even look at him. Anything you have to say, you can say in front of Celine. Since apparently she's intimately familiar with your decision-making process. The barb lands. Corvin's face flushes dark with anger or shame or both. We did what we had to do. What the prophecy demanded. A child of the pack, innocent and pure, offered to the darkness so that the many could survive. It's ancient law. Necessary sacrifice. Necessary. Celine speaks for the first time since Damien arrived, and her voice carries across the clearing like a bell. Tell me, Alpha. How many others did you consider before you chose me? How many children did you line up and evaluate before deciding which one was expendable enough to murder? Silence. Damien's jaw tightens, a muscle jumping beneath his skin. I was the only one, wasn't I? Celine continues, taking a step forward. Because I was small. Powerless. Because my father was dead and my mother was too broken to fight for me. Because I was easy. You were chosen by fate, Corvin insists, but his voice wavers. I was chosen by cowards. The power inside her flares, and Celine feels her eyes ignite, silver fire that makes the wolves cringe backward. But the moon goddess had different plans. She took what you tried to throw away and made it into something you should fear. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me the truth about that prophecy. All of it. And then I'm going to decide whether your pack deserves to see tomorrow. Damien's hand finds hers in the darkness, his fingers threading through hers with shocking gentleness. The touch grounds her, steadies the power threatening to spiral out of control. We do this together, he murmurs, just for her. Whatever comes next. You're not alone anymore. And despite everything, despite the rage and the pain and the 8 years of carefully constructed walls around her heart, Celine finds herself believing him. The night Celine died, it rained. She remembers that detail with crystal clarity, even though most of the rest is mercifully blurred. The way the drops felt on her face as they dragged her toward the altar, cold and clean, like the sky was trying to wash away what was about to happen before it could stain the earth. She'd thought maybe the rain was a sign, that the moon goddess was weeping for her. That someone, somewhere, cared that a 10-year-old girl was about to be butchered in the name of survival. She'd been wrong about the weeping part. Right about everything else. Standing in the clearing now, hand-locked with Damien's while her old pack watches with varying degrees of horror and calculation, Celine can feel the memories rising like floodwater. She's spent 8 years building walls against them, shoving them down into the darkest corners of her mind where they couldn't reach her. But being back here on this ground, surrounded by these wolves, staring at the face of the man who ordered her death, the walls are crumbling. She was in her room when they came for her, playing with the wooden wolf her father had carved before the hunting accident that killed him, making it prowl across her windowsill while she hummed the lullaby her mother used to sing. The door had opened without warning, and Alpha Corvin filled the doorway with 3 enforcers behind him. "It's time, little one," he'd said, and his voice had been gentle. Kind, even. Like he was inviting her to a party instead of a slaughter. She'd asked where they were going. He'd smiled and told her she was going to be a hero. That the pack needed her. That she was special, chosen, blessed. All lies. But she'd believed them because she was 10, and he was the alpha, and children are taught to trust the adults who are supposed to protect them. Her mother had been waiting outside, face blank, eyes distant. Celine had reached for her, expecting comfort, expecting her mother to scoop her up and tell her everything would be okay. Instead, she'd just touched Celine's cheek with cold fingers and whispered, "Be brave." That was it. 2 words. The last thing her mother ever said to her. The walk to the old ritual site had felt endless. The whole pack had lined the path, silent and solemn, watching her pass like she was already a ghost. Some of them had tears on their faces. Most just looked relieved, grateful that it was her and not their children, their mates, their siblings. She'd started to understand then, started to feel the fear creeping in cold and sharp. But she'd pushed it down because surely they wouldn't actually hurt her. This was her pack, her family. They loved her. The altar had been covered in white flowers, moonflowers, sacred and rare. They dressed her in white too, a ceremonial robe that hung too large on her small frame. Made her kneel while Alpha Corvin spoke words in the old language, words that tasted like ashes and sounded like endings. That's when she'd started screaming. Damien's hand tightens around hers, and Celine realizes she's trembling. Not with fear, she's past fear now, so far past it that the concept feels foreign. With rage. With a memory of betrayal so profound it rewrote her understanding of what people are capable of. "You're safe," Damien murmurs, low enough that only she can hear. "I've got you." But she wasn't safe then. When the blade came down and she felt her blood spilling hot across the stone, when she watched the sky spin above her and felt her wolf dying inside her chest, when she realized with absolute clarity that no one was coming to save her. She'd called for her mother with her last breath. Screamed for her. Begged. Her mother had turned away. That's the part that still cuts deepest. Not the physical pain, not the terror, not even the betrayal of the alpha who was supposed to protect his pack's children. But the way her own mother chose the pack's survival over her daughter's life. The way love, real or imagined, proved insufficient against fear. Celine died hating her. Died with that hate burning brighter than the pain, hot enough to catch the moon goddess's attention. Because that's what happened next. What shouldn't have been possible but was anyway. The darkness had come for her, gentle and vast, and instead of nothingness, she'd found herself cradled in silver light. The moon goddess didn't have a face, not one Celine could comprehend, but she had a presence. Ancient and endless and somehow impossibly kind. "They broke you," the goddess had said, and her voice was everywhere and nowhere. But broken things can be reforged. The question is, do you want to be remade? Celine had said yes. Had screamed it. Had poured every ounce of her betrayal and rage and grief into that single word until it became a vow. The goddess had taken her then. Not to the afterlife, but to somewhere else. A realm between realms where celestial wolves ran on paths made of starlight and power flowed like water. Where time moved differently and pain was transmuted into strength. 8 years. 8 years of training under wolves who'd forgotten how to die, who taught her to harness the divine fire the goddess planted in her chest. 8 years of learning that she wasn't just wolf anymore, she was hybrid, blessed and cursed in equal measure. That her blood carried something ancient, something the goddess herself had woven into her veins. The prophecy was real, just not the one Alpha Corvin had believed. The child sacrificed in innocence shall return in power, the goddess had told her on the day she finally sent Selene home. She will stand at the crossroads between destruction and salvation. What she chooses will reshape the world. Selene hadn't asked which choice the goddess wanted her to make. Hadn't asked because she suspected the goddess already knew that revenge was carved into Selene's bones now, that mercy had bled out on that altar along with her childhood. But standing here with Damien's hand in hers, with the mate bond singing between them like a lifeline, she feels something shifting. Something she doesn't want to name because naming it makes it real and real things can be lost. "Tell me," Damien says suddenly, his voice carrying across the clearing to Alpha Corvin. "This prophecy you keep mentioning, the one that supposedly demanded her death, where did it come from?" Corvin hesitates, and in that hesitation, Selene sees the truth. There was no prophecy. Not the way he claimed. Just fear and desperation and the kind of convenient interpretation that lets people justify the unforgivable. "You made it up," she breathes, and the silver fire in her eyes flares brighter. "Didn't you?" The pack house is burning. Not literally, not yet, but Selene can feel the heat of chaos spreading through the compound like wildfire. Word travels fast in wolf packs, faster than it should, carried on invisible currents of fear and gossip and the kind of primal awareness that comes from living so close together that everyone's emotions bleed into everyone else's. They know she's back. They know the Alpha King claimed her. They know the impossible has walked out of their nightmares and into their reality. Damien hasn't let go of her hand since they left the clearing. His grip is firm but not controlling, anchored and steady, like he's afraid if he releases her she'll disappear back into whatever realm she emerged from. They walk through the forest in silence, the pack trailing behind at a respectful distance, nobody quite sure what to do with the girl who died and the king who calls her mate. Selene can feel their eyes on her back, can sense the questions building like storm clouds, can taste their fear, metallic and sharp, mixing with something else. Maybe. Or recognition of something they've been taught to worship, but never expected to see. "Where are we going?" she asks finally, breaking the silence that stretched too long between them. "Somewhere safe," Damien replies. "Somewhere we can talk without an audience trying to decide whether to kill you or kneel." She laughs, and the sound comes out darker than she intends. "They already tried killing me once. Didn't take." His jaw tightens, muscle jumping beneath skin. "That won't happen again. Not while I'm breathing." It should annoy her, this instant protectiveness, this assumption that she needs guarding. But instead it does something complicated to her chest, something that feels dangerously close to hope, and Selene has spent 8 years learning that hope is just another word for weakness. The trees open up ahead into a grove she doesn't recognize. Ancient oaks circle a clearing where moonlight pools like liquid silver, illuminating stone markers covered in symbols that make her wolf stir restlessly. The air here feels different, thicker, charged with the kind of power that predates wolves, predates shifting, predates everything humans have words for. Sacred ground. "The old place," Damien says, answering her unspoken question. "Where the first wolves made their covenant with the moon goddess. Where prophecies are written in stone and blood." Selene's breath catches. She knows about places like this. The celestial wolves taught her. Nexus points where the veil between worlds grows thin, where divine power seeps through like water through cracks. Where truth has weight and lies burn on the tongue. In the center of the grove stands an altar, but not like the one that killed her. This one is older, untouched by violence, covered in silver moss that glows faintly in the darkness. And carved into its surface, worn smooth by centuries but still legible, are words in the old language. Words Selene can read now after 8 years of training. Words that make her blood run cold and hot simultaneously. The child of sacrifice shall walk between worlds. Born of betrayal, blessed by divine tears, she will carry the choice in her hands, salvation or damnation. The packs will bow or burn. The moon will weep or sing. And the one who stands beside her will determine which path the world follows. Damien's voice is quiet as he reads it aloud, translating for the wolves who followed them into the grove. His hand is still locked with hers, and Selene feels the moment he understands. Feels the shock ripple through the bond between them like electricity. It's about you, he breathes. The prophecy Corvin thought he was preventing by killing you, it was never about stopping you. It was about what you'd become if they tried. Selene stares at the words carved in stone, and something inside her chest cracks open. All this time, she'd thought the moon goddess saved her out of mercy, out of love, out of some divine impulse to protect an innocent child. But this is bigger than that. This is destiny written in rock and magic, inevitable as sunrise, inescapable as gravity. She was always supposed to die on that altar. Was always supposed to be betrayed. Because only through that betrayal could she become whatever it is the prophecy needs her to be. I don't want this, she whispers, and her voice breaks on the words. I didn't ask to be some cosmic weapon. I just wanted to be a normal girl. I just wanted my mother to love me enough to choose me. Damien turns her to face him, both hands framing her face with a gentleness that makes her throat tight. You're not a weapon. You're a person. And whatever this prophecy thinks you're supposed to be, you still get to choose. Do I? The question comes out bitter. Because it seems like everyone else has been choosing for me since I was 10 years old. The pack chose to kill me. The moon goddess chose to save me. And now this, she gestures at the altar, at the words that seal her fate, says I have to choose between saving them or destroying them. Where's my choice in any of it? Behind them, Alpha Corvin steps forward from the gathered pack and Selene tenses. But he's not approaching with aggression. He's moving slowly, carefully, like someone approaching a wounded animal. Or a bomb. The prophecy, he says, voice rough with something that might be regret. We knew about it. The elders did. They told me that if we didn't prevent it, if we didn't stop the child of sacrifice before she could become what she was meant to be, she would end us all. So you chose to murder me preemptively. Selene's voice is flat, emotionless, but the silver fire in her eyes flares bright enough to make him flinch. You saw a prophecy about a child betrayed and decided the best course of action was to betray a child. Did it ever occur to you that you were fulfilling it instead of preventing it? Silence falls across the grove like snow. The confession hangs in the air like smoke, thick and choking, and Selene watches understanding ripple through the assembled pack like a stone thrown into still water. They're putting it together now, the horrifying truth that their Alpha didn't save them from destiny. He delivered them straight into its teeth. Alpha Corvin's face has gone the color of ash. We thought, the elders interpreted. You thought wrong. Damien's voice cuts through the growing murmur of the pack like a blade. You killed a child based on fear and called it prophecy. You created the very monster you were trying to prevent. I'm not a monster, Selene says quietly, but the words carry weight, pressing against everyone present like physical force. But I could be. That's what you're all afraid of, isn't it? That I came back to burn everything down. That the girl you sacrificed grew into something powerful enough to actually do it. Movement at the edge of the grove catches her attention. More wolves approaching, but these aren't from Corvin's pack. They move differently, with military precision, with the kind of deadly grace that speaks of professional training. Royal Guards. And at their center walks a woman who makes Selene's wolf bristle with instinctive wariness. She's older, silver threading through dark hair, but age hasn't weakened her. If anything, she radiates authority that makes even Damien straighten slightly. She wears robes marked with symbols of the High Council, and her eyes, pale gray and sharp as winter ice, fix on Celine with an intensity that feels like being dissected. Alpha King, the woman says, inclining her head just enough to be respectful without being submissive. I am Elder Mora of the High Council. We received word of. Her gaze slides to Celine, an unusual situation requiring immediate intervention. There's no situation, Damien responds, his voice carrying warning. Only my mate, who has returned after suffering an injustice that this council should have prevented. Elder Mora's expression doesn't change, but something cold flickers in her eyes. Your mate. Yes, we've been informed. How fortuitous that the very girl prophesied to bring about either salvation or destruction just happens to be fated to our king. Some might call that convenient. Others might call it suspicious. The implication lands like a slap. Celine feels Damien tense beside her, feels his wolf rising in defense, but she steps forward before he can speak. Say what you actually mean, she demands. Stop dancing around it with pretty words. Elder Mora's lips curve into something that's not quite a smile. Very well. The High Council questions the legitimacy of this bond. Fate doesn't make mistakes, but it can be manipulated by those with sufficient power, particularly by those who've spent time in realms where the normal rules don't apply. The accusation crashes through the grove like thunder. She's saying Celine faked the mate bond, that she somehow tricked the universe itself into binding her to the Alpha King so she could destroy them from the inside. That's insane, Damien growls, but the damage is done. Celine can see it spreading through the gathered wolves: doubt, suspicion, fear crystallizing into something harder and more dangerous. Is it? Elder Mora continues, her voice reasonable, persuasive. She returns after 8 years in the moon goddess's realm, wielding power that shouldn't exist, and within hours she's bound to the most powerful wolf in our world. The prophecy speaks of choice, salvation, or damnation. What better way to ensure damnation than to compromise our king? You don't know what you're talking about, Celine says, but her voice lacks conviction because part of her, the part that still remembers being helpless and broken, is asking the same question. Why did the bond snap into place so fast? Why did the moon goddess send her back now, during the Blood Moon Festival, when Damien would be present? What if this is all part of some cosmic chess game she doesn't understand? I know that the prophecy exists for a reason, Elder Mora counters. I know that every seer who's touched it has seen the same vision, a girl with silver fire in her veins standing over the broken remains of our world. I know that you were meant to die to prevent that future, and instead you've returned more powerful than ever, bound to our king, positioned to destroy everything from within. The pack is shifting now, restless and agitated. Some look at Celine with naked fear, others with calculation. A few with the kind of determined hostility that precedes violence. She hasn't done anything wrong, Damien insists, but even he sounds less certain now. The seed of doubt has been planted, and Celine can feel it taking root in the bond between them. He wants to believe her. He does believe her. But belief and certainty aren't the same thing. Not yet, Elder Mora agrees. But the prophecy is clear. She will choose. And we cannot afford to wait and see which path she takes. The High Council has voted. She must be contained until we can determine whether she's truly your mate or an enemy wearing fate's disguise. No. Damien's voice drops to something dangerous, primal. His wolf is fully present now, pushing against his skin, turning his eyes gold and feral. You're not taking her anywhere. Then you're declaring yourself in opposition to the council? Elder Mora's voice remains calm, but there's steel underneath. You would risk civil war over a girl you met hours ago? A girl who might be manipulating you through false bonds and divine trickery. The question hangs between them like a blade, and Celine feels the moment Damien hesitates. Feels the doubt creeping in through the cracks in his certainty. He wants to choose her. She can sense it in every line of his body, in the way his wolf is screaming to protect its mate. But he's also a king. And kings have responsibilities that go beyond personal desire. Celine makes the choice before Damien has to. I'll go with them. The words drop into the silence like stones into water, and she watches the ripples spread across Damien's face, shock, then anger, then something that looks dangerously close to betrayal. His hand tightens around hers reflexively, like his body is rejecting what his ears just heard. No, he says flatly. Absolutely not. You don't get to decide that. Celine keeps her voice steady even though everything inside her is screaming to run, to fight, to unleash the power burning in her veins and show them all exactly what happens when you back a blessed wolf into a corner. I'm not some prizy one that gets stored away for safekeeping. I'm a person. And I'm choosing to cooperate. They'll cage you, Damien hisses, leaning close enough that only she can hear. They'll study you like something to be dissected. They'll look for ways to break you or bind you or let them try. The silver fire flares in her eyes, just for a moment, just enough to remind him what she is, what she's survived. I spent 8 years training with celestial wolves, Damien. Whatever the council thinks they can do to me, they're wrong. But if I run now, if you fight them for me, you prove every fear they have. You make me look guilty. Elder Mora is watching their exchange with shrewd calculation, and Celine knows the woman is cataloging every gesture, every word, looking for proof that the bond is false. Looking for ammunition. 3 days, Celine says, turning to address the elder directly. You have 3 days to test me, question me, do whatever you think you need to do to verify the bond. After that, you release me. No conditions. No exceptions. And if we determine you're a threat? Elder Mora asks coolly. Then you'll have bigger problems than one wolf to worry about. It's not a threat. It's a promise. A statement of fact delivered with the kind of certainty that comes from knowing exactly what you're capable of. The elder's eyes narrow, but she inclines her head. 3 days. The Alpha King may visit under supervision. Any attempt to escape or harm council members will be considered an act of war. Understood. Damien looks like he wants to argue, wants to fight, wants to do anything except watch her walk away with wolves who see her as a weapon to be controlled instead of a person to be protected. But Celine squeezes his hand once, hard, and pushes a single thought through the bond that's still so new it feels raw. Trust me. She walks toward the council guards with her head high and her heart hammering against her ribs like it's trying to escape her chest. She doesn't look back. Can't look back, because if she sees the expression on Damien's face, she might change her mind, might decide that running is better than whatever comes next. The guards surround her but don't touch her, maintaining careful distance like she's something radioactive. They lead her out of the sacred grove and toward the compound's edge, toward a building she doesn't recognize. Stone and silver, windowless, humming with the kind of suppression magic that makes her wolf whimper and retreat to the deepest part of her consciousness. A holding cell. Of course. The inside is sparse: a bed, a chair, a small bathroom separated by a thin partition. But it's clean. Secure. Not cruel, just contained. They leave her there with instructions that someone will bring food and that Elder Mora will begin her evaluation in the morning. The door closes with a sound like finality, and Celine is alone for the first time since the bond snapped into place. She sinks onto the bed and lets her head fall into her hands. What is she doing? 3 days ago, she was ready to burn this entire pack to ash. Ready to stand over Alpha Corvin's body and feel nothing but satisfaction. Ready to prove that mercy is for people who haven't been murdered by the ones who were supposed to love them. Now she's in a cell, cooperating with a council that sees her as a threat, bound to a mate she's known for less than a day, and somehow, impossibly, doubting the revenge that's sustained her for 8 years. The bond. It has to be the bond. It's making her soft, making her question, making her feel things she has no business feeling for someone she doesn't even know. Damien is a stranger. A powerful stranger, yes. A kind one, maybe. But a stranger nonetheless. Except that's not entirely true, is it? The bond carries information that bypasses logic. She knows things about him she shouldn't, knows that he lost his parents young, knows that he carries guilt like stones in his pockets, knows that he's spent his entire reign trying to be worthy of a crown he never wanted. Knows that when he looked at her in that clearing, it was the first time in years he'd felt anything other than duty. She knows him the way you know your own heartbeat. Intimately. Inevitably. Inescapably. The door opens without warning, and Celine is on her feet in an instant, power rising to her fingertips before she recognizes the figure in the doorway. Damien. He's alone, no guards, no witnesses. Just him holding a blanket and a flask and looking at her like she's something infinitely precious and infinitely fragile at the same time. They said I couldn't come until morning, Celine says carefully. That visits were supervised. I'm the Alpha King. Damien steps inside and closes the door behind him with deliberate gentleness. I go where I want. And I wanted to be here. To make sure he stops, jaw working. To make sure you're real. That this isn't some nightmare where I finally find my mate and lose her in the same breath. The rawness in his voice does something to her chest. Something dangerous and devastating. I'm real, she whispers. Unfortunately for both of us. Damien crosses the small cell in 3 strides and does something Celine doesn't expect. He sits on the floor, back against the wall, and pats the space beside him like they're 2 normal people instead of a king and the girl prophecy marked for destruction. Sit with me, he says quietly. Please. She should refuse. Should maintain distance, should remember that she's here to cooperate, not to get comfortable. But something in his voice, the exhaustion, the vulnerability, the raw hope, makes her sink down beside him. Not touching, but close enough that she can feel the heat radiating from his body. He offers her the flask. Water. I thought you might need it. She takes it, drinks, and the simple kindness of the gesture makes her throat tight. When was the last time someone thought about her needs without wanting something in return? She can't remember. Can't reach back far enough to find a memory that doesn't taste like ash. Tell me something true, Damien says after a long moment of silence. Not about prophecy or power or any of the things everyone else wants to know. Just something real. Celine turns the flask in her hands, watching condensation bead on the metal. I'm terrified, she admits, and the words feel like pulling thorns from her skin. Not of the council or their tests. Of this. Of you. Of the way the bond makes me feel things I have no business feeling. What kinds of things? Safe. The word breaks on her tongue. Like maybe I don't have to carry everything alone anymore. Like maybe someone could actually. She stops, swallows hard. It's dangerous. To feel that way. To want that. Because people who are supposed to keep you safe are the ones who hurt you worst. Damien is quiet for a long time, and when he speaks, his voice is rough with emotion. My parents were killed by rogues when I was 16. They were traveling to a peace summit, trying to unite the fractured packs, trying to build something better. And someone decided that peace was more dangerous than war. Celine turns to look at him, finds his eyes distant, locked on memories she can't see. I was supposed to go with them, he continues. Threw a fit because I wanted to stay home for some stupid reason I don't even remember now. My mother gave in. Let me stay. And because of that, because she chose to protect my happiness over protocol, I'm alive and they're not. That's not your fault, Celine says automatically. I know that. Logically. But logic doesn't stop the guilt. Doesn't stop me from wondering if I'm worthy of the crown they died trying to honor. If I'm making choices they'd be proud of or just surviving day by day and calling it leadership. He turns to face her fully now, and the vulnerability in his expression steals her breath. When the bond snapped into place tonight, when I saw you across that fire, it was the first time since they died that I felt certain about something. Not duty or obligation or what the crown demands. Just certainty. That you were mine and I was yours and nothing else mattered. We don't know each other, Celine protests weakly. I know you're brave enough to walk into a pack that tried to kill you. I know you're strong enough to survive 8 years in a realm that breaks most wolves who visit for 8 hours. I know you chose to cooperate with a council that fears you instead of burning them all down, which means you care about justice more than revenge. I know. The door slams open with enough force to crack the frame. Elder Mora stands in the doorway flanked by guards, and her face is carved from ice and fury. But it's the woman standing behind her that makes Celine's heart stop. Her mother. Older now, more lines around her eyes, but unmistakably the woman who braided her hair before they killed her. Who whispered empty reassurances and turned away when it mattered. Who chose the pack's survival over her daughter's life and never looked back. Mother. The word tastes like poison. Her mother's face crumbles, tears streaming down her cheeks. Celine. My baby. I thought they told me you were dead. Celine finishes coldly, standing slowly. I was. You watched them kill me. You let them. I had no choice, her mother sobs. The prophecy, the pack, I thought I was saving everyone. I thought. You thought it was easier to sacrifice me than fight for me. The silver fire ignites in Celine's eyes, and her mother recoils like she's been struck. Don't pretend this was noble. Don't pretend you did it out of love. You did it because you were a coward. Elder Mora steps forward, and there's something calculating in her expression that makes Celine's instincts scream. Actually, she did it because I told her to. The words land like an explosion. The prophecy was clear. Elder Mora continues, voice calm, almost conversational. A child of sacrifice would either save or destroy us. Your mother came to the council, desperate to protect you, begging for another way. And I convinced her that your death was mercy. That if we acted first, before you could grow into your power, you'd be spared the burden of choice. That we'd be spared the risk of destruction. Celine feels the ground shifting beneath her feet. You orchestrated it. All of it. I interpreted prophecy and guided the fearful toward the safest path, Elder Mora corrects. Which is precisely my role as council elder. And now you've returned, bound to our king through what may or may not be a legitimate mate bond, positioned to destroy everything I've spent decades protecting. So this was never about testing the bond, Damien growls, rising to his feet. This was about eliminating a threat. Elder Mora's smile is cold and terrible. The council has reviewed the evidence. The bond is declared false. She is declared enemy of the Pax. And the sentence, she looks directly at Celine, is death. Again. But this time, we'll make sure it takes. The silence that follows Elder Mora's pronouncement is absolute. The kind of silence that exists in the space between lightning and thunder, where the world holds its breath and waits for the devastation to arrive. Celine doesn't move, doesn't speak, just stands there in the center of the cell while something ancient and vast unfurls in her chest like wings spreading after years of being bound. The power the moon goddess planted in her veins 8 years ago, the divine fire she's kept carefully leashed, the fury she's transmuted into strength, all of it rises to the surface with the force of a tidal wave. No! Damien's voice cuts through the tension like a blade, and he steps in front of Celine with his body, shielding her from the guards who are already moving forward. I am your king, and I'm telling you, stand down. You are compromised, Elder Mora says, and there's almost pity in her voice. The false bond has corrupted your judgment. Step aside, Alpha King, or be removed from power for the protection of the realm. The bond isn't false. Damien's wolf is rising in his eyes, turning them molten gold, and the air in the cell grows thick with the kind of power that makes lesser wolves drop to their knees. I know my own mate. I know what's real. You know what she wants you to believe. Elder Mora gestures to the guards. Take him into custody. Gently. He's not himself. The guards hesitate. They're loyal to their king, trained to follow his commands, but they're also terrified of the prophecy and the girl who embodies it. Celine can see the conflict warring in their faces, can sense the moment they choose fear over duty. They move toward Damien with apologetic expressions and restraints that gleam silver in the dim light. Don't. Celine's voice is quiet, but it carries weight that makes everyone in the room freeze. Don't touch him. Don't make me show you what happens when you do. Empty threats, Elder Mora scoffs, but there's uncertainty flickering in her eyes now. You're in a suppression cell. Your power is dampened. You're helpless. Celine laughs, and the sound echoes wrong. Too many layers. Too many voices woven together like harmonics. You built these walls to contain wolf magic, to suppress shifting and pack bonds and the natural power that runs through our kind. But I'm not just wolf anymore, Elder. I haven't been since the night you had me murdered. She takes a step forward, and the suppression sigils carved into the walls begin to glow. Not the steady blue they're designed to emit, but silver. Burning, brilliant silver that spreads through the stone like veins of light. The moon goddess doesn't follow your rules. Her power doesn't recognize your boundaries. And when she remade me in her realm, she made sure that nothing, not council decree, not suppression magic, not death itself, could cage what I've become. The silver light intensifies, spreading from the walls to the floor, crawling up the guards' legs like living fire. They cry out and stumble backward, and Elder Mora's composure finally cracks. Stop her, she shouts. Use the binding chains, But it's too late. The suppression field shatters like glass, and Celine's power floods the room in a wave of celestial fire that doesn't burn but transforms. The guards drop their weapons, their wolves whimpering and submitting to something older and more primal than alpha dominance. Something that speaks to the core of what they are, children of the moon, bound to her grace whether they acknowledge it or not. Celine's eyes are pure silver now, no pupils, no iris, just endless light. Her hair lifts in an invisible wind, and marks appear on her skin, ancient symbols that glow like starlight, the language of the divine written directly onto her flesh. I am Celine, daughter of no one, claimed by the goddess, marked by sacrifice. Her voice resonates with power that makes the building tremble. I am the child you tried to erase, the prophecy you tried to prevent, the choice you feared. And I am done being afraid of what you think I might become. Her mother collapses to her knees, sobbing. Please, please, baby, I'm sorry. I thought I was protecting you. You thought wrong. Celine looks down at the woman who gave birth to her and feels nothing. No rage, no grief. Just empty space where love used to live before it was murdered along with her childhood. You chose fear. You chose to believe that killing me was easier than fighting for me. And now you get to live with that choice. Every day, knowing that your daughter came back and you don't deserve her forgiveness. She turns to Elder Mora, who's backed against the wall, all her authority stripped away in the face of genuine divine power. You manipulated grieving parents. You twisted prophecy to serve your fear. You've built an entire system on the belief that control is safety and power is threat. But I'm not here to destroy you. Elder Mora's eyes widen with desperate hope. I'm here to give you the same choice you never gave me. Celine's voice drops to something softer, but no less powerful. Change. Dismantle the council that values survival over compassion. Stop treating gifted wolves like weapons to be controlled or eliminated. Build something better. Or, the silver fire flares brighter, I will burn your old world down and build a new one from the ashes. You have until the next full moon. She turns to Damien, and the divine power dims just enough to let her be human again. To let her be just a girl looking at the boy who chose her when he had every reason not to. Let's go home, she says, and extends her hand. He takes it without hesitation, and the bond between them blazes so bright it illuminates the entire compound. They walk through the compound in silence, and behind them, the world is already changing. Celine can feel it, the ripples spreading outward from her declaration like circles on water, touching every wolf within range of the power she unleashed. Not controlling them, not forcing anything, just awakening something. Reminding them of what they are beneath the fear and the politics and the careful systems designed to keep everyone in their designated boxes. Children of the moon. All of them. Blessed and wild and never meant to be tamed. The pack members they pass don't attack. Don't challenge. They just stare. Some with fear, yes, but others with something that looks dangerously close to hope. Like maybe they've been waiting for someone to stand up and say the things they've been too afraid to voice. Like maybe she's not a threat but a catalyst for the change they've needed but couldn't name. Damien's hand is warm in hers, steady and sure, and when they reach the edge of pack territory, where the compound gives way to wild forest and endless sky, he finally breaks the silence. Where do we go from here? It's not really about geography. Celine knows that. He's asking about them. About what happens when the dust settles and the prophecy is fulfilled and they're left standing in the aftermath of everything that just burned down. I don't know, she admits, and the honesty feels like freedom. I came back for revenge. To make them pay for what they did to me. To stand over them and feel satisfied that justice finally happened. And now? Now she's seen her mother broken on the floor, has watched Elder Moira's carefully constructed authority crumble, has given them the ultimatum that will either save them or destroy them depending on what they choose. Now she's bound to a man she's known for less than a day, but feels like she's known for lifetimes. Now the rage that sustained her for 8 years has burned itself out, leaving what? Not emptiness. Something else. Something that feels like the space between endings and beginnings, where anything could take root and grow. Now I think maybe revenge isn't what I actually wanted, Celine says slowly, working through it as she speaks. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted them to see what they did, to feel the weight of it, to understand that murdering a child has consequences. I wanted to matter. To be more than just the sacrifice they made and forgot about. You matter. Damien stops walking and turns to face her fully, both hands coming up to frame her face with devastating gentleness. Not because of prophecy or power or divine intervention. Because you're you. Because you survived the unsurvivable and came back stronger. Because you had every reason to become the monster they feared and you chose something different. Because when I look at you, I see everything I've been missing without knowing it. The words crack something open inside her chest, and Celine feels tears spilling down her cheeks for the first time since she died. Not sad tears. Not angry ones. Just release. The kind of crying that happens when you've been holding on so tight for so long that letting go feels like falling. Damien pulls her against his chest, and she lets him. Lets herself be held, be comforted, be weak for just this moment, because strength doesn't mean never breaking. It means having someone to catch you when you do. What if they don't change? She whispers against his shirt. What if they choose fear again and I have to? Then we'll face it together, he interrupts gently. Whatever comes next. Whatever you choose. I'm not going anywhere. You don't even know me. I know enough. He pulls back just far enough to meet her eyes. I know you're brave and broken and beautiful. I know you've got a second chance at life, and you're trying to figure out what to do with it. I know the bond between us is real, whatever Elder Moira claimed, because I can feel you in my chest like a second heartbeat. And I know that I want to spend however long you'll let me proving that not everyone will betray you. That some people stay. The moon breaks through the clouds above them, full and silver and impossibly bright. And Celine feels her wolf stirring, feels the moon goddess's presence like a hand on her shoulder, approving and gentle and vast beyond comprehension. She made it. Against all odds, against prophecy and death and 8 years of trauma, she made it to the other side. Not whole, she'll never be whole the way she was before. Innocence can't be restored once it's shattered, but something different. Something forged in divine fire and tempered by choice. She's not the weapon they feared. Not the savior they hoped for. Just a girl who died and came back and decided that maybe the world deserves better than what fear creates. Maybe she deserves better too. Stay, she tells Damien, and the word is permission and plea and promise all at once. Stay and help me figure out what comes after revenge. After prophecy. After everything. He kisses her forehead, and the bond between them blazes bright enough to rival the moon. Always. They stand there at the edge of everything, two broken people bound by fate and choice, and the forest around them comes alive with whispers. The pack is watching. The council is deliberating. The prophecy is unfolding exactly as it was always meant to, not with destruction or salvation, but with something messier and more human. With choice. With change. With the terrifying, exhilarating possibility that maybe nothing is written in stone after all. Would you have chosen her side? Or would you have been one of the wolves standing in that clearing, convinced that fear was wisdom and sacrifice was necessary? Would you have seen the little girl begging for her mother, or just the threat she might become? Here's the thing about stories like Celine's, they're not really about wolves or prophecy or divine intervention. They're about what we do when we're afraid. About whether we choose compassion or control when both options are terrifying. About whether we believe people can be more than the worst thing that's ever happened to them. If this story lit something inside you, if you felt Celine's rage and Damien's hope and the terrible, beautiful possibility of starting over, then subscribe to Shayla's Romance Library. Because here, we tell tales that burn. Stories about girls who refuse to stay dead and boys who love them anyway. About prophecies that don't control destiny so much as illuminate it. About the complicated, messy, devastating truth that love and rage can coexist, that justice and mercy aren't opposites, that sometimes the girl everyone fears is exactly the hero everyone needs. Hit that subscribe button. Because Celine's story? It's just beginning. And, trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when a girl blessed by the moon goddess decides to rewrite the rules everyone thought were sacred.